Good evening and welcome to the Brookfield Zoning Commission regular meeting. Today's date is April 27th, 2023. This meeting is being held in Town Hall Room number 133. If you will all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I would ask all the commissioners to please introduce themselves, starting from my far left.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Daryl Pratt, regular member.
Andrew Kame, secretary.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Chandra Kumar, Vice Chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Thank you. Next item up is continued public hearings. There are none. So next item would be number 3, public hearings. Item A for 7 Shirley Court, Z-23-4, Michael Phelan, new garage construction over 900 square feet and fill in excess of 100 cubic yards. Public hearing is set for today. This time I will read the introduction to the public hearing. This is a regular meeting of the Brookfield Zoning Commission. At this point in our agenda, we have scheduled a public hearing concerning the application of Michael Phelan, application number Z-23-4, for new garage construction over 900 square feet and fill in excess of 100 cubic yards. Once again, first I'll ask the members of the commission to please introduce themselves again as a formality, starting with my far left.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Daryl Pratt, regular.
Andrew Kame, secretary.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Chandra Kumar, Vice Chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Thank you. We will now open this public hearing by calling upon the commission secretary to please read the legal notice of this hearing.
This legal notice was placed in the News Times by Amy Curran, the Land Use Administrative Assistant, on March 27th, 2023 for publication. Please print the following legal notice on April 14th and April 24th, 2023. Notice, Brookfield Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at Town Hall, 100 Pocono Road, room 133, at 7 p.m. on April 27th of 2023 of a special permit application by Michael Phelan, 7 Shirley Court, to fill more than 100 cubic yards for construction of a 1,300 square foot garage. At this hearing, interested persons may appear and be heard, and written communications received. Files are available for inspection at the Town Hall. Gary Getz, chairman.
Thank you, Mr. King. This application was formally received by the commission on January 25th, 2023. The public hearing is only one aspect of the approval process and is for the purposes of accepting factual information and data bearing on this application and to allow expression of opinion by interested parties. Subsequent to this hearing, the commission has 65 days in which to render a decision on this proposal. The final decision may be in the form of approved as submitted, approved with stipulations, or denied. After reading into the record the correspondence received by the commission relative to this application, we will ask the applicant to present the application in detail. The presentation will be limited to 45 minutes. The chair will then entertain questions of clarification concerning the applicant's presentation. We will hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the application, followed by those who are opposed. Comments must be limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public will have one opportunity to speak during this segment of the hearing and may also submit their concerns in writing during the public hearing. During this segment, the commissioners may ask additional questions. The bylaws of the commission allow only for the presentation of similar positions in succession and preclude the intermixture of comments pro or con. All questions and comments must be directed through the chair. As you are recognized, please state your name and address so that your comments may be legally recorded. Please be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. Excuse me. However, the commission is most interested hearing factual information relative to the application. And in view of the time constraints placed upon us, we ask your indulgence in not reiterating comments previously presented. After the public comments are received, the applicant will have the opportunity to comment, and the time will be limited to 10 minutes. Are there any questions? All right, thank you. Next, we would ask the secretary to proceed with the reading of correspondence, but I don't believe that there is any at this time.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The chair is now prepared to hear the applicant's presentation.
Good evening, Michael Phelan, 7 Shirley Court. So about 2 years ago, me and my wife purchased the house at 7 Shirley Court. After purchasing the house that was right amongst COVID, we met with Fran and the Wetlands Commission at that time. I don't believe it was Raquel at that time, and discussed possibly filling a portion of our land on either side of the driveway, and then the idea of constructing a garage on our property. The property has a lot of hardships on it. I have a big area of wetlands. I have sloped property behind my house and to the right and left of my house. The flat spot of my property is on what the town considers to be the side of my house, although it looks like the front of my house, which myself or Fran was not really sure, so he checked with the town attorneys, and they said where the driveway enters the roadway is considered the front of the house, which worked in favor of where I wanted to put the garage, because then I wouldn't need a variance for the garage location, because that's the only flat part of the property. So after having multiple surveys done of the property, topography maps, soil samples, going through the Wetlands Commission and getting approval for the proposed fill areas and the garage location, I am standing before you seeking for zoning permit to construct a garage 2 feet wider and 10 feet longer than what is acceptable by the town of Brookfield in the zoning regulations. The fill in excess of 100 yards. I need approximately 500 yards. I shot a little bit high on the application just to be sure, to fill on either side of the driveway to make a level yard in that area. We actually had somebody drive off. It's about a 4-foot embankment. Drive off that with their car and were stuck in my front yard. So that's what we're seeking to do at this time. There's also a easement through the property already for the Aquarian wells that are behind the property, which would be the driveway access for the garage in the proposed location. We did go for ZBA, and we have a shed approved for the property. I can't put the shed in the area that was approved until I bring in some fill to level off that area of the yard, which is in the proposed fill area also. I think that is about the gist of what I'm looking to do here. Yes,
That's it?
that's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, at this time, the chair would like to ask if the audience has any questions of clarification before we hear comments pro or con. Hearing none, do any of the commissioners have any questions of clarification at this time?
Yes.
Mr.
thank you,
Timmerman, please.
So you're not going to take your main driveway and bring it down, you're gonna add this, or the second driveway here, there's access for Aquarian is gonna be used on the west side of the property?
That driveway is already in existence.
Oh, it exists already?
Correct.
And you're
So
gonna?
that's an easement for the Aquarian to access their wells, which
Right.
are next to my property.
Okay, and is there gonna be is this gonna be a drive-in garage? I mean, are you gonna use it for cars?
Yes.
And which side of the garage are you gonna actually drive into?
So I would like to drive into, which I believe is the west facing the road.
Okay.
I don't have a final design of the garage yet. I haven't got into, the design phase because I don't know exactly what size or, that's kind of all dependent on, first it was dependent on the wetlands, whether I could even put it there, and then it's dependent on whether I'm approved to go with the size that I'm looking for versus the 900 square feet, which is, the zoning regulation.
And is the fill related to the garage at all,
No.
or is there two
Two
independent?
totally separate areas.
Okay,
So the fill is for the, I guess would be considered the side and the front yard of my house on either side of the existing driveway.
to make it safer?
Correct.
Yeah.
The garage location is completely separate, doesn't need any excavation or anything like that. It's
Okay.
It's within the 75-foot buffer zone of the wetlands, which is why I needed to get approval from the Wetlands Commission to be able to put it there, which they didn't take any objection to the garage location. It was more so on the fill side, but we squared that away.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ms. Hadza, you had a question of clarification?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rochelle Hodza. I'm the Land Use Director and the Inland Wetlands Officer for the town of Brookfield. I have a question of clarification. So, in some ways related to a point Mr. Timmerman wanted clarification on, this is a public hearing tonight for the fill. Do you require a public hearing for the garage? In other words, as I understand the regulations, a 900 square foot detached garage is permitted by zoning permit. And you're saying that your garage is greater than 900 square feet. So as I read the regulations, it says that the commission may approve greater than 900 square feet garages with the approval, with a submission of a site plan. So are we looking at a site plan application, a special permit application, which would require a public hearing specifically for the garage? Or are we here at this public hearing specifically and only for the filling of greater than 100 cubic yards per year?
So my belief, we were here for both the garage and the fill. I was told that I could submit them both on one application.
Mr. Lally, is a special permit required for this garage or simply a site plan?
The site plan with the approval of the zoning commission, which he has two applications in the file, one for the garage and one for the fill.
Okay, so I would just suggest perhaps that we limit this public hearing, since the garage itself does not require a public hearing. What we're really here for is this portion of the meeting. In other words, there are two separate operations, as I see it. The application for a public hearing, and the public hearing that we're holding now is only required for the adjustment, this amount of fill. And Mr. Phelan would then at some other point come back for the site plan application for the garage itself. I think they're two completely different operations.
Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up, if it may, Andy Kame, Secretary.
Please proceed.
The description of the work indicates that the project name is yard fill/shed. It says the volume to be added is 575 yards of fill, I assume. And so my questions are related to the fill. You said that you were going to put in, was it 500 yards or it was more than 500 yards?
From the rough calculations that I have based off of the topography maps, I believe it came out to was it? 573.84 yards.
Okay. And on this fill,
But, and again, this calculation was done prior to, this is taking the total area and raising it to a level, to the level of the driveway. Although when I was going through, the Wetlands Commission, they put a stipulation that I had to have, grading to what the topography map shows here, which is a slope. So it's going to be less than the 573 yards. But I didn't want to
Okay.
undershoot
okay,
on the fill.
but it's gonna be more than 500.
Correct.
Okay. And the fill, the nature of the fill that you're gonna put in there is what?
Dirt. So it's gonna be I'm either gonna purchase it from, a local aggregate yard, or if I have approval, I would like to, possibly get the dirt from a local project going on at the Candlewood School District.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the things that we like to see is clean fill.
Correct.
So,
That was part of the stipulation of the Wetlands Commission
Okay.
as well. So it's
All
gonna
right.
be either, I guess it's gonna be certified with documentation that it is
Okay.
clean, doesn't have any PCBs, oil contaminants, anything like that. And again, I'm putting it in my property,
Well-
which is the well area
Yeah.
right next to me. I don't wanna,
typically,
contaminate that.
they don't like to see, we don't like to see construction debris in it either.
No.
You know, I mean, if it's. you know,
Understood.
Doesn't have to be grade A, triple grade A topsoil, but,
Understood.
It's
Yeah,
gonna be
no,
clean
I
fill?
don't.
Okay.
It's gonna be clean filled, either purchased from a yard, or if it's purchased not from an aggregate yard, I've already contacted, Quest Environmental in, Wappingers Falls, New York, who can provide testing for the fill. Because that was, as I said, a stipulation of the Wetlands Commission that it had to be clean fill.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions of clarification? All right, hearing none. The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in favor of this application. Speakers must please state their name and address. Mr. Lally, if I may, I think there's letters in this file, that some of which may be in favor
Wizard?
of the application. Should we read those into the
Yes,
record at this
absolutely.
time?
Yes, sir, yes. I wasn't aware.
Secretary doesn't mind.
Thank you. We have a letter to the town of Brookfield from a Mr. R.J. Fitch of 39 Mist Hill Drive in Brookfield. He's in support of granting the proposed zoning permit to Michael Phelan of 7 Shirley Court. He's in favor of adding 100 cubic yards per zoning regulation 6.5 earthwork and grading and a garage structure exceeding 900 square feet per zoning, per regulation 3.4. We have another letter from Mr. Louis Di Navarro Mora of 6 Shirley Court. He is in favor and supporting the proposal. Mr. Dennis and Marilyn Eliason of 20 Deer Run Road are also in support of granting the proposal for both the garage and the fill. We have another letter from a Donna M. and John N. Sullivan of 24 Deer Run Road, who are also in support of the proposal. And we have a letter from a Mr. William C. and Kim H. Weiss of 22 Deer Run Road, and they are in support of the proposal.
Mr. Secretary, if you don't mind, could you read the text of the correspondence into the record?
Okay. From the Fitches on 39 Mist Hill Road, Brookfield Zoning Commission, I, R.J. Fitch, am in support of granting the proposed zoning permit to Michael and Roberta Phelan of 7 Shirley Court, Brookfield, Connecticut. The proposed permit I support include adding aggregate material fill in excess of 100 cubic yards per zoning regulation 6.5, earthwork and grading, section B, 3, and a garage structure exceeding 900 square feet per zoning regulation 3.4, accessory uses and structures section C1B. Sincerely, R.J. Fitch. This is one from Mr. Louis D. Navarro, 6 Shirley Court, Brookfield Zoning Commission. I, Louis D. Navarro Mora, am in support of granting the proposed zoning permit to Michael and Roberta Phelan of 7 Shirley Court, Brookfield, Connecticut. The proposed permits I support include adding aggregate material fill in excess of 100 cubic yards per zoning regulation 6.5 earthwork and grading section B, 3, and a garage structure exceeding 900 square feet per zoning regulation 3.4, accessory uses and structures section C1B. Sincerely, Louis D. Navarro Mora. From Dennis M. and Marilyn Eliason at 20 Deer Run Road, we have to the Brookfield Zoning Commission. We, Dennis M. and Marilyn L. Eliason, are in support of granting the proposed zoning permits to Michael and Roberta Phelan of 7 Shirley Court, Brookfield, Connecticut. The proposed permits we support include adding aggregate material fill in excess of 100 cubic yards per zoning regulation 6.5 earthwork and grading section B, 3, and a garage structure exceeding 900 square feet per zoning regulation 3.4, accessory uses and structures section C1B. Seems to be a pattern here. Brookfield Zoning Commission, from Donna M. and John N. Sullivan. Brookfield Zoning Commission, we, Donna M. and John N. Sullivan, are in support of granting the proposed zoning permits to Michael and Roberta Phelan of 7 Shirley Court, Brookfield, Connecticut. The proposed permits we support including adding aggregate fill material in excess of 100 cubic yards per zoning regulation 6.5 earthwork and grading section B, 3, and a garage structure exceeding 900 square feet per zoning regulation 3.4, accessory uses and structures section C, 1, B. And also from William C. and Kim Weiss to the Brookfield Zoning Commission. They are of 22 Deer Run Road. We, William C. and Kim H. Weiss, are in support of granting the proposed zoning permits to Michael and Roberta Phelan of 7 Shirley Court, Brookfield, Connecticut. The proposed permits we support include adding aggregate material fill in excess of 100 cubic yards per zoning regulation 6.5, earthwork and grading, section B, 3, and a garage structure exceeding 900 square feet per zoning regulation 3, 4, accessory uses and structures, section C, 1, B.
And that's every one of them?
That is the correspondence, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Again, the chair is prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in favor of this application. Is there anyone here for that? All right, thank you. The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in opposition to this application. Again, the chair is prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in opposition to this application. It appears that there are none. Commissioners have any further questions or comments at this time?
I just had one.
Mr. Kane?
Can you just give us a rundown on the total square footage of the garage that you propose?
Yes, I believe it's 1,280. It's going to be 32 feet wide by 40 feet deep.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Anyone else, Mr. Timmerman? This time, it appears that the commissioners have no questions or comments. At this time, the chair would be happy to entertain a motion on how to proceed on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, if it please the commission, I would make a motion that we approve this application. I don't have the number in
So
front of
you
me.
have to close the public hearing first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, then we would have to, I would draw my motion and I would, you can recognize this guy or no? Close.
You want to speak in opposition?
I'm not against. And
You have to, sir, you have to come and identify yourself.
Yeah, so if you're against it, this is your
I'm
chance.
not against it. I'm interested in this
Name and
situation.
address for the record.
I'm Jeffrey Murray, 4 Shirley Court. I'm directly across from
Okay, would you spell your last name, sir, please, for the record? Just
Murray.
thank you for your presentation.
Is that Jeffrey with a J or a G?
J.
Thanks.
Thanks. They're directly, the garage is gonna be directly across from my house. And once they build it, life happens. It's not guaranteed that they're gonna be here in 5 years. So you said stipulation. I'm into astronomy. And I talked to Mike, they were very good, sorry. Like I said, there's no guarantee they're gonna be here, you know, life happens. So I would like it in writing that whoever buys it, so that I talked to Mike, he agrees to, you know, cut the lights down, but the new owner, you know, isn't obligated to do that. And you said stipulation. There's, you know, low light, there's a Dark Sky Association, the International Dark Sky Association, that has minimal lighting, and you said stipulation. That's what I'm asking. If it's possible.
May I ask you a question of clarification? Who do you
Yeah.
expect to give you this in writing?
I don't know. You're the zoning board. I mean, yeah, they do have a right as property owners to have all the light they want. But you said stipulation. That's what
I'm not sure when I said that, but I don't know that that's something that we could require.
okay.
Oh, Mr. Chairman?
I didn't know either.
Please, Mr. Timmerman.
We actually do make stipulations like dark sky, compliant
Okay.
lighting. And there are already regulations on how bright
Oh, okay.
the lights can be from one neighbor to the other. Yeah, so,
Okay,
Thank you.
well, like I said, I talked to Mike, he's a great, they're very good neighbors, but just in case somebody else moves in, all right? All right, then.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kane, were you
Well-
about to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, if it pleases the commission, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for application Z-23-4, Michael Phelan, new garage construction over 900 square feet and fill in excess of 100 cubic yards.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Kane, seconded by Mrs. Holmes. Is there any discussion about the motion? Hearing no discussion, take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion to close the public hearing carries. Now, this time, the chair would be happy to entertain a motion as to how to proceed with the application.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the commission, I'd make a motion that the Brookfield Zoning Commission approve the permit Z-23-4 for Michael Phelan, new garage construction over 900 square feet and fill in excess of 100 cubic yards.
Mr. Kane has made the motion. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Pratt has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion about this motion?
I have just one point.
Yes.
I'm sensitive to the light issue myself, but I think folks should be aware that there are lighting requirements for residential structures, and they typically don't allow extremely bright lights. A standard home lighting is normally what's allowed. That's my understanding. If Mr. Timmerman has any further comments, I'd appreciate it, but
that's true. I mean, you can't be more than a half candle foot at the lot line from one residence to the other, and down lighting.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by nay. Are there any abstentions? Motion carries. The application is approved. Thank you. Next item up on our agenda, number 4, review minutes of previous meeting from April 13th, 2023. This time, the chair would ask, are there any commissioners who have any questions or comments about the minutes? And if there are none, I would ask that we make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 13th, 2023.
Mr. Pratt has made a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I would second that motion.
Mr. Kane has seconded it. Is there any discussion about the motion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call the order. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. Minutes are approved as submitted. Next item up is number 5, enforcement. Call on Mr. Lally at this time to please provide us with the zoning enforcement officer's report.
Sure, business is picking up, I'll say. Put it that way. 47 High Ridge Road, the Salis residence. I was scheduled tomorrow to go out on site with the town attorney. Mr. Salis has had some personal issues, so that meeting has now been rescheduled with the town attorney on May 19th, same time, 12 o'clock. So I'll have another update. The owner has started putting up a fence around the property, trying to shield all the stuff up there, but we have pictures prior to the fence, so anyway, I'll have another update at the May 25th meeting as to where we're going with this. 53 Merwin Brook Road, Stephen Conway, Little Stevie's tree work. He called the office on the 14th of this month, informing me that he'll be removing all the equipment from there. He's gonna change his LLC address to his Danbury business address. I've left it on the report just to monitor it for now, but there's been no more complaints, which is on the good side, so. Next one, 202 Canoa Lake Road at Danbury Slovak Gymnastic Club. I received 2 complaints, one on the 17th and one on the 21st. Vehicles parked all over the property, violation of that special agreement 89-9. I sent a notice of violation quoting that the regulation or the special permit number, and also for the vehicles parked in a non-designated driveway since they were parked on the grass. So I have not got a response back, but I'm sure they'll hear that tonight. 9 Cross Road, the DeGramino residence, received a complaint from the neighbor that he's parking his Purple Heart carting garbage truck in the driveway. I went out there, there was 2 dumpster containers in the driveway along with the truck. Sent a notice of violation to the property owner. They have till tomorrow to comply with the order. I haven't heard anything as of today. 44 Silver Mine Road, Emerson de Oliveira, received a complaint of roosters and chickens. The owner called me yesterday. I wasn't aware of the chicken and rooster regulation. I asked him how many chickens he has. He had 37 chickens and 3 roosters over here on Silver Mine Road. He was gonna start removing the roosters. Obviously you need 3 acres for 1 rooster, and removing the chickens too. He's gonna follow back up with me next week once most of it's out of there. He was gonna relocate it to another property, hopefully not in Brookfield, so. Moving to the cease and desist list, 31 Green Knoll Drive, the McGovern residence. There's been no update to my knowledge at this time. I will defer to Ms. Hodza at this time, if she'd like to maybe give a quick update on this.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Mr. McGovern of 31 Green Mill Drive has not yet made the payment of the fines that were assessed by the citation hearing officer. The total was $750. The land use attorney, Barbara Schellenberg, spoke with Mr. McGovern's attorney, Neil Marcus, and said that she would like to see the payment within 10 days. We're probably about 10 days now. I think tomorrow would be 10 days. So to date, still no payment. I was hoping, and I would have preferred to go ahead and seek a judgment for that amount in court, but I'm going to defer, of course, to our attorney, and if we receive no payment by tomorrow, then we will pursue further action. In the meantime, on Saturday, I received a video from Mr. Stout, the most aggrieved neighbor, from the filling, and apparently Mr. McGovern is working on his property back there again. So I think, I don't know exactly what he was doing, I couldn't really see, but he does have a cease and desist order, as well as a cease and restore order on that property, and so he really shouldn't be tampering with the grounds back there at all. So I'm getting ready to probably Monday make another
Thank you, Ms. Hatza. Mr. Lally?
Moving on to the citation, 89 Wisconsin Road, Holling Gome residence. I was in court last week for that. That's finished hopefully this time. Right now, it's just waiting the decision on the court, on the judgment of that. And then 35 Hidden Brook Drive, the Henry Torres residence. That's been deferred to the town attorney along with from the building department also, Mr. Coquinos. So there's no update at this time on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Do any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Lally? Yes.
And
Ms.
Mr.
Conlon?
Chairman, thank you. I'm just curious as to what does it take to rectify Green Knoll? And has anybody checked the aquifer?
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please, Ms. Hatza.
thank you. So, as has been discussed at many of these zoning commission meetings, what is required of the applicant now is quite specific, as you know, it was stated in the citation and all along in the cease and desist and cease and restore orders. But the first and foremost, the applicant needs to present to me or the commission a plan of remediation. So, you know, that would consist of hiring an engineer perhaps to, they are refuting the amount of soil that was deposited, the amount of fill that was deposited. So, you know, if they say it's more than, you know, it's not as much as 100 cubic yards, well, it looks like a whole heck of a lot more than that to me. So, you know, we're waiting right now for a plan of action. You know, what they are intending to remove, how much they're intending to remove, a timeline, when they're planning to do that. Will there be any, you know, is there a need for testing on those soils? We don't know where the fill came from. So I'm really just waiting for their remediation plan, which, you know, I think I'm gonna sit here all day, you know, waiting for that. The town does have the power to seek an injunction for restoration from the court, as well as getting this judgment for the $750. And I dare say that would be the only way to compel the offender, you know, to actually, you know, make a plan to remediate. Because I think, you know, no action whatsoever on that. I haven't received any reports of, you know, where the soil came from, despite promises from both the attorney and Mr. McGovern. So we're kind of just sitting on our hands.
Thank you, Ms. Hatza. Mr. Kame, you had a question or comment?
Director Hadza, I just had a question. What is the due date for the remediation, the plan of remediation? Do they have a specific date to get back to
Well,
it?
that's long past, yes. I mean, that was
Okay.
December 19th.
Okay.
That was 2022, that was good.
Thank you.
My question, of course, I think some of the other commissioners may be headed in this direction, is what is our next step here?
So the next step is to, in fact, pursue an action in court to get an injunction to have this property remediated. To have the soil removed if that's required. But in order to do that, you know, I can't as a, you know, I need the attorney to do it. So
Okay.
far, I guess the feeling is that, according to the attorney, that, you know, we should try to work with the applicant. But I'm personally past that. This is not about me. This is about, you know, my position with the town as as a deputy zoning enforcement officer. So I need to follow whatever drums the town is beating. And at the moment, I haven't been able to you know, kind of motivate the powers that be, whoever they are, because I'm not exactly sure, to actually, you know, file pursue a court action. So, you know,
Was there anything that the zoning commission can do? Is it possible for us to request that the attorney give us a time line. I'm certainly all in favor of, negotiations if they'll produce a result, but nonetheless, there needs to be some sort of timeline as to when negotiations cease and when the injunction begins. So,
Yeah, as you say, left to my druthers, I mean, I've been in court long ago. We've given this man, ample opportunity to make good, and the fact that, he hasn't been paid the fine, which, excuse me, which should have been paid, over a month ago, is problematic. So, I mean, I think if the commission itself, which is, this body of the town feels that it's worth pursuing in court, I suppose you could make that recommendation.
well, I think before we made that recommendation, what we'd like to hear is, back from the attorney, as to, what are the next steps here? What are their recommended plan to resolve this situation going forward and get the plan of remediation, get the land fixed back the way it was, or to an acceptable state, depending on what they work out. But we need to see some movement forward. So if there's anything we can do, my recommendation is to just have a conversation with the attorney. Maybe we could report back to us at the next meeting as to where we go with this.
I think that's a good idea. I'll be sure to get a report back to you at the next meeting. Sorry.
I have a question. Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
please, go ahead.
If I may, to Ms. Hatza. So the offender was tampering with the property? And who found that out, you or Fran or?
No, that I was sent a video of somebody doing work in the back, again, on that mound of soil, so I couldn't see what they were doing. but-
Somebody not the offender? Some
No, I mean,
company?
I
or-
don't know, I can't see. I mean,
But
again,
he was not remediating or,
They certainly wasn't digging things out. I mean, you're gonna need backhoes and trucks, so, yeah, so, I mean, no, not to that extent, but, in the past, I have witnessed him, picking out debris off the surface of that area, but, so it would require though then, a couple of things. I could go out there and look at it again and see what's going on, but the fact is that he's under a cease and desist order and in order to restore, and, none of that has been done, so, at any moment, I would have the authority to reissue, or to issue a new violation and that's not been done, because all of those violations still exist and nothing's been done, so, because our town doesn't have a daily accrual of fines, we're somewhat limited. I mean, usually a daily accrual of fines will get someone to act, because now, they're mounting daily, they're mounting
Right.
daily.
can we request that our town attorney come here and attend the zoning commission meeting one evening to discuss this as to how to
If I may
pursue?
intercede for 1 second, Mr.
Certainly,
Chairman.
Mr. Lally.
I did receive an email from the town attorney late tonight, regarding the growing seeds, which she would like to talk to the commission about. So I can perhaps coordinate the growing seeds lawsuit, and if the commission has questions regarding 31 Green Knoll,
Okay.
With that in mind, if I may suggest, we can make the request for the next meeting, May 11th.
May 11th. I will definitely reach out to her.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any comments? Mr. Kamey?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on one thing you said. If it is possible, if we are legally allowed to issue a second level of fines, then my recommendation would be that we do that, because, what we're moving toward is changing that inaccurate fining structure to a daily structure as allowed by the state of Connecticut. So we're in the process, that's in the process of being done. But in the meantime, we should, if we haven't received compliance, then certainly a follow-up would include another citation, I believe.
Okay. I'll see to it, thank you.
Thank you, Director Hodson. Any other commissioners have any further questions or comments?
I just had one more, Mr.
Okay, Mr.
Chairman.
Kane?
Sorry to be so verbose
Quite all
tonight.
right.
We did have on this, and I apologize for, I don't have my prior copy. At one point in time, we had a property on here, I believe it was on Stony Hill Road, where there was a wall that was built on another neighbor's property. Is that still on here?
No, it's not, that's because it was mostly the commercial vehicle, and I think a motion was made to remove that off there.
Okay,
That's
because,
a civil suit going on right now between the two property owners.
well, okay, then I guess maybe should we discuss it privately with you, or what? Because it seems to me that there are more commercial vehicles on the property, and in addition to commercial vehicles, there's vehicles that are damaged. In other words, the type of vehicle that you would see in an auto salvage yard.
I know there's the one vehicle that someone had an accident with, the one truck, and that's all I'm aware of at this time.
All right.
I'll follow up again tomorrow and take a look and see.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So
Sure,
just to
Director
add to
Hudson.
this 107 Stony Hill Road, it's not simply that there are cars there, it's not simply that there are a number of problems that continue to exist and fester at that property. The poured concrete wall, which is about, 30 feet high and, I don't know, 70 feet wide. I don't know how big do you think that thing is?
17 feet.
It's only 17 feet high?
17.
Okay. Only 17 feet high, forgive me. And it's a poured concrete wall, which has not been, which has no zoning permit whatsoever. And it possibly poses a danger to people, or the land itself. It was poured over the weekend illegally. No building permit had been received from it for it either. And there is a so-called red tag from the building department on that, but no one seems to want to move forward with it because it is on people's property. However, according to zoning regulations, property ownership has nothing to do with zoning regulations. I don't care who owns that wall or whose property it's on. The fact is that it's built without zoning permit. In addition to that, the garage in front, right on the road, is the whole roof is collapsed in and corroded and, again, a dangerous structure, which is also a violation. And then the fact that I think the biggest crime is that the resident of the neighborhood is operating a business there. It's called Seawolf Construction, and it's, clearly a business that's storing materials there and, building, there are all kinds of walls and fences that have been built up around this business there. And the person who is above him and overlooks him, I believe, is the one that initially, is that correct, Mr. Lawler, the one who's above initially made the complaint?
A few years ago, correct?
A few years ago. Well, the wheels of justice turn slowly, as our attorney knows.
Where I was headed with this, if I may, was that it appears that we have more than one item to discuss with the attorney. So I would like to add that to that list as well.
We can do that.
Yeah.
I'll make a note.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Thank you again, Mr. Lally. Any further questions or comments from the commissioners? Seeing or hearing none, we'll move on to number 6, review correspondence. We have no correspondence at this time unless Mr. Kane would like to make mention of something.
Yeah, this is just a sort of a general discussion amongst the commissioners. There's been a proposal by the Charter Revision Commission, as you know or may not know, to eliminate the Planning and Zoning Commission and merge it with this zoning commission. Part of that proposal is to increase the size of this commission from 5 members to 7 members, 5 members to 7 voting members. Personally, I'm not in favor of that because I think this commission works very well. And in reality, we have 8 members on the commission. We have 5 voting members and 3 alternates. Our attendance is excellent. Our participation is excellent. We have people who have a very wide knowledge of the zoning, planning, and different skill sets that apply to this. So taking on additional members, making the committee larger, to me seems that it would be far less efficient. I had written a letter and sent it to Chairman Getz to see if people would be interested in sending that to the selectmen. Unfortunately, we forgot to bring a copy of it tonight.
We as in me.
I'd like to forward it to each of the commissioners, see what you think, and if you're in favor of it, we'll be happy to mention your name. If not, then I'll just be happy to send it in under my name. The thrust here is to keep this commission efficient. One of the arguments was, if you can believe this, was that somehow having a larger number of people would make it easier to get a quorum. As you may know, the larger the committee, the larger the quorum. So if you're having trouble with people attending and getting 3 people, I'm not quite sure how having 5 people for a quorum would make it better. So that's my 2 cents. If anyone else would like to add anything.
If I may just ask a question of clarification, so the commission would go from 5 regular members and 3 alternates to 7 regular members and 3 alternates for a total of 10.
Correct. I don't think we have quite enough number of chairs here for that, but
It's time already.
Thank you.
Can you sit on your lap?
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. Mr. Kane? So again, no correspondence to review, excuse me. Under number 6, item number 7, old business, item A. And in this matter, I've already recused myself, so at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to seat Commissioner Kane as acting chairman for the purposes of considering the next item on the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Pratt has made a motion to
I
seat
second.
Mr. Kane. It's been seconded by Mr. Komar. Is there any discussion about the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kane.
okay, thank you. Do you have a copy of the application?
No, I don't.
Mr. Lawley, would you have a copy of the application for the Soco Lodge Z-22-73? At our last meeting, the public hearing was closed, and one of the items that was expressed by the commissioners was the ability, they wanted to discuss this matter. And so, I mean, there's several ways we can do this. We can make a motion and discuss it. We can discuss it first, then make a motion. What's the feeling of the commission?
Mr. Secretary, you need to seat somebody.
Oh, that's correct, we do. Thank you, sorry. One of the issues that comes up with this particular thing is that we want people who have, are familiar with this issue. We did a check here, and all of our commissioners have certified that they're familiar with this issue and have, knowledge to sufficiently vote on the issue with respect to the zoning regulations. I believe Commissioner Arment is up next. Is that correct in the rotation?
I was on last week.
Mr. Kane, if you'd like me to.
Yep, help me out.
Yes, thank you. So, I was the one who produced that diagram before you, just to indicate who among the members of the commission and alternates of the commission had attended which public hearings. There were 2 public hearings held in this matter, because Mr. Getz, Chairman Getz has had to recuse himself, or has chosen to recuse himself, we have that one position open. Mr. Pratt, although he was not here at the last public hearing, is a regular member and was seated at the first public hearing. He was present for the first public hearing. As a member, he is, welcome and entitled to certainly deliberate on this case if he can testify here that he has in fact, number one, viewed the video recording that he missed of April 13th, that he has received all of the materials and hasn't had a chance to review them, and finally, that he feels capable of making the business case. That would be the first.
Mr. Pratt, are you capable of voting on this issue with respect to what Ms. Director Hadza just referred to?
No, sir, I would like to recuse myself as well.
Okay.
I just don't have enough, I'm missing a whole meeting, and this is a pretty intense case, so.
Was the meeting that was missed the one where we didn't?
That was the 13th, just when you didn't want.
Was that Mr. Pratt at that meeting?
No, so Mr. Pratt was not at the last meeting.
Okay.
However, he does not feel prepared to vote. Therefore, at the last meeting, we had 2 alternates seated.
Okay.
Mr. Timmerman and Ms. Arment. Because they were seated at the last meeting, last public hearing, and indeed attended both public hearings in person, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's
Ms.
correct.
Arment? Mr. Timmerman? They should remain that you should seat them again.
Okay.
For deliberation and vote this evening, if the vote takes place at all this evening.
Okay. Is there any objections from the commission? And to, again, for purposes of continuity here, this is why we're doing it, to seat Commissioner Timmerman and to seat Commissioner Arment as members for tonight?
No objections.
Okay, thank you. Then that's what we'll do. So that would, Commissioner Timmerman, you will be voting member. Commissioner Pratt, you are recused for the evening, and Commissioner Arment, you are a voting member for tonight. Okay, that said, now that we have our folks in for the voting, would we mind just taking a quick thing for the record so that we introduce ourselves one more time?
Kurt Timmerman, alternate voting member tonight.
Andrew Kame, chairman for this particular issue tonight.
Chandra Kumar, Vice Chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Gwen Arment, alternate but voting member for tonight.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioners, as we said, normally do, sometimes we do discussion ahead of the motion, sometimes we do discussion as part of the motion. We can also do discussion as part of the motion. What say ye? Do you want to have a discussion on this particular issue? Mr. Timmerman, you seem to indicate you don't.
Yeah, I think it's important to go over the history of this lot, and the regulation that applies, and the one they have a variance from 1989 on, and some of the history in between. So that's what I'd like to do as far as deliberations go.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, Mr. Timmerman, you have the floor.
Thank you. This lot, as we've heard through the public information, it first was purchased around the early 80s and operated, I would say illegally or without a permit, as a community, as a Sokol's Club, until they became legal non-conforming in 1989. First through a variance, which varied the regulation, and then after that with a zoning commission approval based on that variance. And just so you understand, this use is allowed in the residential zone under 3.3 C5, subject to a special permit, which is fine as long as they follow the regulation just after that, D, which talks about community institutional types. And this is what they got the variance on, 120,000 square feet, so that's over 2 acres, 2.5 acres. Minimum lot width of 300 feet, 2 side yards, 75 each, a rear yard of 50, and a front yard setback of 75. Can't cover more than 10% with buildings, no parking in the front yard, all the things that were mentioned in there. And the reason they made these restrictions was so that this use doesn't bother the residents around them, this residential zone. So it makes sense. You have sort of an intensive use, a commercial use, in a residential zone, you want to buffer it. And it's a similar thing for if you have a daycare in a residential zone. You have more restrictions to maintain the residential character. Unfortunately, and this is what the zoning commission thought in 1989, in 1988 the ZBA gave a variance for that, for a huge variance on this small lot, 1 acre lot. And as a consequence, you know, that intensity, whatever intensity they have as a commercial property, is obviously going to have an impact on the residential zone to the south of it, including its own. And which is why the zoning commission at that time felt it was necessary to even mention, you know, that they didn't think that it was an excessive, they thought it was an excessive variance and not in nature, and not in keeping with the regulations at the time. And though the applicant's attorney said, oh, you should ignore that, the fact is nobody appealed that decision, just like they didn't appeal the variance. And so it became the regulations that apply to that very lot. So nothing happened much, I suppose, from 1989 to 2014, because at the time, and even in 2014, when it was in front of me in the ZBA, it was just 7 guys playing cards, and then they wanted to increase their use. And I feel that right from that point on, increasing the intensity was not, it was against what the stipulations wanted. They wanted to maintain a residential character, And at that time, we felt, as the 1989 stipulations were enforced, it created a buffer from the residential zone it was in to the commercial zone just to the north of it. And that commercial zone, it was called RS 41, I believe, back then. Now it's called the MC zone. That hasn't changed at all since zoning began. They made that zone to recognize, the MC zone, to recognize the use, the commercial use in the marinas in that area. And the idea was that it would never grow, and in fact, during 2014, we just talked about that, 2018 as well, or 2019 in the zoning commission, and then also in the rewrite. During the zoning reg rewrite, despite what the planning commission thought they remembered, we specifically did not want to increase the size of the MC zone, because it's stuck in the middle of a residential zone all around it. So those are some of the clarifications I submitted to the file as well at the first, between the first and the second public hearings. That's on the public record. So to me, the intensity went from, 7 guys playing cards to, unfortunately, Sokol's inviting other groups that get involved in this, unfortunately, because I say, the groups do good, but, and all the good they do, unfortunately, has nothing to do with the zoning regulations that we have to look at. It's good for what they do, but not in that place. Not because of the regulations. We don't allow that sort of intensity of use, especially with the stipulations placed from 1989. So I don't think we should change the zone because of that. I mean, the other part of that was, just because you're increasing the zone and making it more commercial use is not a reason for changing the zone. Every time they increase it, they violate the stipulations that have been there more and more. And the stipulations are there for a reason, to keep it as a residential zone. So that's how I feel about that.
Thanks. Do any other commissioners have any questions or
Yeah.
comments?
I believe we can change that zoning law and approve the parking. It's just parking space. These guys are parking on the,
Well,
come on.
it's interesting. It's more than just parking,
They
because
wouldn't park out there if they have parking space.
the number of, despite what, the number of events they want, you could see, was in the 2019 zoning request, and actually resolution. The resolution is a public record. That in that resolution that the zoning commission agreed to, and this was, again, to sort of restrict, and this is a restriction of what we wanted to do. They wanted 63 events total per year. So that's 12 meetings, up to 50 people there. No, I'm sorry, 48, 4 per month, times 12 months. And they wanted 15 special events, up to 150 people. So regardless of whether they actually did that, they can do that. So if that's what their ask was before, I don't see why it'd be any different. In fact, their ask was higher than that. The zoning commission in 2019 brought it down because, again, we wanted to create a compromise. We had to approve it because the ZBA gave a variance to allow the 30 parking spaces. And so when they came in, we thought, just like the zoning commission in 1989, we wanted to restrict what could be there because, again, it wasn't in keeping with a residential zone. And it's a woefully small lot for a community center like that. So it's not just the parking, it's the use of it. The parking is sort of a side effect of the use they're creating. And, even the safety aspect, just like in 2014, just like the overturn from the courts from the 2018 and 19, it was a self-induced hardship. They're inviting more people in, creating more of a parking issue and a safety hazard on top of it. So, is for those reasons. I think changing it to a commercial zone doesn't help the situation. In fact, it exacerbates it. Because they would want to have more meetings. They want to have as many meetings as they felt they would like, and with that comes all the parking too.
I just have a question. How many spaces are actually authorized now for them to use for parking?
13.
13 spaces?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back in 2018-19, they had the variance and the approval for 30, but then that got overturned.
Okay, so they were granted 30, it was struck down by the court, and they have 13 parking spaces that they can use now. In addition to, I think it was mentioned that there's, for some events, they do park off-street and in other areas.
Well, they park in the front yard, which it truly is. It's part of their property, but for some reason, they think it doesn't apply because it's what they got from the state, what they bought from the state. So between the stone wall and the road, they were parking there, like that one photo we saw. There was a lot of cars, 30-something,
Right,
which is illegal.
I understand that, but my question was, how many legal approved parking spaces are there? And you said 13.
13.
And in addition to that, if they make agreements with neighbors or other streets, or they find off-street parking somewhere, or at one of the marinas or some other thing of that nature, they can have additional cars there.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is permitted under, they do have permits to do this, and do those permits expire?
They don't expire.
They do not expire, okay.
Not in 1989, that's what's enforced right now.
Commissioners, anyone else have any questions or comments during the deliberative phase here?
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman,
Mhm.
for the property history. I took a drive by the property today and checked it out, and the surrounding neighborhoods, and the south side of the area is heavily residential. I think, I'll just say that for now. Anyone else? Have you guys driven by it? Has anyone taken the tour? You drove by as well? Okay.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yes, it is residential, and it's a small property for commercial. Residential
I
across the
do-
street, residential next to it.
I do drive by at least 5 to 10 times a day. I don't see a crime there.
Well, there's lots of parking violations on this property. I mean, even in our ZEO report tonight, it was on there. 202 Candlewood Lake Road. Complaint received 417 from neighbor, vehicles parked all over the front lawn, not in designated driveway and in violation of more than 13 vehicles parked. I mean, it seems like if we don't approve, they're still gonna do this and overuse the space. Or find ways around it, like you said, parking, deals with neighbors, parking in other areas.
Well, to
It's-
your point, Commissioner Holmes, I agree with you. My point here was to try to determine the actual number of legal parking spaces that they're allowed. I
And
think
it's 13.
it's 13, and that was by the court. The court actually was the one that put it back to the 13 from 30.
Yes.
I'm correct in that, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so, the issue then becomes that they're putting more than 13 vehicles on that thing, and, you know,
I also,
it's obviously
I
on
don't
the
wanna-
zoning officer's report at this point, so it looks to be an enforcement issue is where I'm going with
It
it.
does look to be an enforcement issue. I'm not negating any of the good that anyone using the property may be doing at that time. I'm not saying anyone's doing anything nefarious on the property by using the property, but if they're gonna overuse the space, I also had questions about the septic in the last, public hearing, and, you know, they said they got porta potties for the events, but, you know, it is a small building for a community center type use. I drove by it. It looks kinda like a house,
Well, and it is in a residential neighborhood.
and it is.
It's zone
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah.
You know, it started as a house. It started as someone's residence.
Okay, any other commissioners have any other questions? Are we at the point where we would entertain a motion to take a vote on this issue? Or does anyone have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to, normally we make motions in the affirmative, so I would entertain a motion to approve the, here we go.
I'll make that a motion to approve 202 Candlewood Lake
Thank you.
Road, Z-22-73, Danbury Slovak Gymnastic Union Sokol, 202 Candlewood Lake Road. Proposed zone designation change R40 to MC.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner,
Second.
Commissioner Arment seconds that. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of changing the zone from residential to commercial, please please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to changing the zone from residential to commercial, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Nay. Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion does not carry.
And the reason, I think it's too small of a lot to support both that use and as a on the commercial zone.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Timmerman. Okay, that ends my duties here. I would entertain a motion to reseat Chairman Getz as the chairman of the zoning commission, and also to reseat Commissioner Pratt as a voting member.
I make a motion to reseat Commissioner Getz as chairman for the evening and also Commissioner Pratt.
I second.
Okay.
Oh.
Come on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, Mr.
Oh, Pratt, no, oh, yeah,
You go back to a non-voting member.
yeah.
Mr. Pratt is going back
We're
to
reverting.
substitute for Mr. Timmerman, although that's a tough act to follow, I have to admit. And Commissioner Getz is going to take over the chairmanship.
Absolutely.
Need a minute.
Yeah. Thank you.
They're gonna- what's gonna happen.
Get the special minute.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kame, for acting as chair for that last application. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to take a recess if one is necessary. If not, we can proceed, just to give that opportunity. Ms. Holmes made a motion that we go to a 5-minute recess. Would that be acceptable? Is there a second?
Second.
Kame? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. No abstentions heard? Okay, we're at a 5-minute recess. Thank you. We can be seated so that we can end our little recess and resume our meeting. Likewise, excuse me, folks. We're resuming our meeting. Thank you all for your attendance if you're leaving.
Take care, good night.
Thank you all. Okay.
Whose is this? This must be.
All right, thank you all. We've now resumed our meeting from our 5-minute recess. We're still on item number 7 under old business. Item B as in Bravo, 100 Pocono Road, Z-23-14, Town of Brookfield. Text amendment to extend the moratorium on cannabis sales to May 16th, 2024. Public hearing is set for May 11th, 2023. Just noting that, so that'll be at our next meeting. Item number 8, new business, there is none. Item number 9, tabled items, A as in Alpha, the revision of the zoning fee schedule. If there is an update on that at this time.
Not really, not this week. Well, I have been speaking with Mr. Kane about it and certain issues, and I don't know, I know Mr. Kane, he thought, like, we try that subcommission to the subcommittee again, I'm not sure if that's, the big thing that's holding this up is the problem with the special permit, fees, because it's, extraordinarily different from other towns, and it's, for example, this evening, Mr. Phelan had to spend $500 for a public hearing because he wanted some dirt in his residence. So that's the portion of, but that's the requirement for all public hearings. So there's no like sliding scale for, what you're doing. It's just like, so I'm having difficulty at that juncture. I mean, everything else is pretty standard, raise this a few bucks here or there, whatever it is, but.
And if I may, so also comparing like residential work with commercial, right?
Yeah.
The resources and the commitment to the community or whatever metric.
So I think, I have looked at New Milford's, they have like a scale, which seems to,
Sorry.
cover most of the things that would come through this commission. But again, another problem that I'm encountering is, how to then, because it will require significant, software revision as well then. So I'm, because our software is now, we have the online and opened up, and all tied in, all the fees are tied into that. So it would have to work in a different way than it's currently working at this kind of scale. Anyway, it's not as if I'm not, I can't make a couple.
So is it fair to characterize your comments by saying the project is a little bit more complicated than we originally thought? It isn't just a matter of changing some fees because it has a ripple effect and impacts lots of things, including the regs and software, and then we have to look at getting new software, or at least building it up a little more and investing more in that.
Not so much getting new software, but it's a matter of reprogramming what we have, and that, that is, that would have to be done with the help of the company that provides the software and all that. But, yeah, it's much more complicated than I had anticipated, and I suppose that's why we haven't changed them since 2012.
Certainly. If I may, just one more privileged question. Do you have a recommendation on where we should go, how we should proceed at this time?
Yeah, I think I just need to file a bit on it with me. Because, I think the next step really is to make a proposal regarding, to make a plan forward. Like, okay, if this is the schedule of fees that is acceptable, how do we, if, in other words, first of all, get the schedule of fees that may be acceptable to the commission and fair to our public, to our residents, and then, then tackle the nuts and bolts of it.
I'd just like to make a comment, and I'm
Mr.
going
Kane.
to share this with the commissioners. I did discuss this with Commissioner Hodson, and I just want to get the commission's approval on this. I think it's kind of unfair to ask a homeowner to pay $500 for a public meeting, the same fee that we would have when someone is doing a major subdivision. I would like to see those fees somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 or less, or something reasonable like that. I don't know whether we call it residential or commercial or major or minor. I'm not sure what it is, but a poor homeowner who's coming in just wants to put a driveway in and has to go through this. That's not, I don't think anybody here is in favor of that. The second thing is, I just want to share with you, I mean, we do have people on this commission that are engineers, that are former regulation specialists for the federal government. We have people who have written, we have ex-computer programmers here, so.
What commission's that?
This one, this is
Oh, thank you.
a very talented group of individuals. And if there's, what I'd like to see is have a meeting with you, maybe off record, and you tell us what it is you need and how you'd like to proceed, and we'll back you up.
Well, I suppose that the best way to handle this, because of, in some ways, unfortunately, all of this stuff needs to be done in the open. You can't have like secret meetings or whatever you want to call them, but, perhaps then returning to the idea of the subcommittee, but I would suggest no more than 3 people, because otherwise, even that is a little bit difficult, but,
Sure.
but, and then, but have me attend so that, we can, because I know what the, I've already understood, what the actual problems are, and then, we can really focus on how best to make it a scale, a sliding scale, whatever it is, to accommodate those many.
If I may, Mr. Timmerman, looks like you may have a question or comment.
On the implementation side, do you need to get a budget for this? If you have someone to program, or is there part of the budget on doing changes?
I think that, it's probably part of our package. We have that,
OpenGov.
And we have we have some representatives and people like that. So I don't think that we are gonna go over a budget that, I think we have a lot of the certain, amount for that kind of, that kind of, service. So I don't think that's gonna be a serious problem. And I think, some of it may be, something in our office could probably figure out how to do it. I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Fran, it must have been Alice that worked with my predecessor, that worked with, people too.
Correct,
do
yes.
all that stuff.
yes.
So, it's kind of just the part I missed.
Programming?
What was that?
Common-oriented business language.
Any-
Yeah.
Thank you, Director Hatza, or as my esteemed colleague would call you, Commissioner Hatza. Any other
Apologies.
questions or comments?
About,
Any suggestions about this matter of the fee schedule, or would you like to make a suggestion about a possible subcommittee?
Yeah,
Mr.
I'd like to
Kane?
talk to Director Hodges about it a little bit more. I think the idea of a subcommittee to help you out and work on it is fine. I do believe that most software contracts do generally provide for some sort of annual updating, address changes, this type of thing. There must be some way that's relatively easy to add sections to the open.gov. If we were to change mailing addresses, for example, so certainly changing fee amounts would fall under that scope.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr.
But I think we'd have to look at the contract first.
Yeah, but I guess the difficulty is that, it's one of these programs that says, if this, then that. And so it's this kind of, very complicated thing. Because if this, then does it go to building? If that, then does it go to, so anyway, it's too complicated for me certainly, but I'm sure, many heads can figure this out. Yeah, I think we can do it.
Okay.
And if I may just add one comment or observation, a lot of times, once you get involved in these things, they do end up taking longer, just like most building projects, than you anticipated. But also, I think the test should be, we end up fixing, we want to fix something, we just don't want to do it and be done. We want to do it properly, right? So I don't think there's an issue with taking our time and being prudent, as long as we continue to make progress. That's all I had to add. If anyone else has anything?
I just feel bad for Mr. Phelan that he paid $500 for
Yes.
that. Is there
I
any
do.
way we could? So how often does that happen where we have, as to Andy's point, major or minor, or I don't know if we wanna call it residential or commercial, but how often does that happen where someone's like massively overcharged for their public hearing? That's
Well, so
interesting to
I-
note.
Yeah, as you know, I've only
Every
been here
time.
15 months, so, 6 months, so I haven't had a whole lot of experience with how often this happens. I believe in the history of anyone's memory here, it's probably the first time someone came in for adding fill to their property.
And paid $500.
Well, you got a 2-for-1, he got to
No,
put his
just-
garage in too.
Just coming in to add fill, but he didn't need a public hearing.
No, but he still
No,
would
he
have to
would
do an
decide.
application,
All
right?
he'd have to do is a site plan application, which costs a couple $100 maybe.
Yeah.
tops.
So,
Yeah,
so are you
that's
saying,
rare for people to come in, homeowners to come in for, that needing a special permit, I think. Isn't that true, Mr. Lawler?
Yes, it is,
There we
correct.
are.
Even for
Okay.
accessory apartments too?
Well,
So
it's actually,
accessory apartments, but I don't know how much those people were charged. We had some accessory.
'Cause those are
apartments
public
charged
hearings.
they're public hearings too.
Every
I
time
mean,
public hearing, $5. And that
For
doesn't
like the,
include rest
the
of
mother-in-law suites and that type of thing, the
Yeah.
accessories?
Well, we definitely need to look at this, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no question.
But if
Yeah,
I may,
if we can do something to benefit our residents.
If I may, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Arment.
thank you.
Yes,
Down at the
sorry.
end there.
Thank you,
Apologies.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman. On the flip side, are we charging too little for commercial?
That is a good question, Ms. Arment, and I dare say we probably are that. There, so, but again, even there too, there have been cases where a small application fees are enormous.
Uh-huh.
And it's, I think, for like a modification or something. So, that's the part, as I say, the things like, how much does it cost to, build a shed? Those are very standard, straightforward things. But when it comes to more complicated applications, I think a more complex kind of, scaled, proportional, fee schedule is what's needed. And I think most towns have turned to that, the ones that I've looked at. They've turned to now, many of them base it on, like the building department, they base it on the cost of construction,
Okay.
And that's,
like a percentage of the cost.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really to recognize how much work it takes based on the size of the project and,
Good discussion. If everyone's okay, we can move on to item number 10, Commissioner comments and informal discussion. Is there any other comments or informal discussion? Commissioner Arment, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am just curious as to what is happening with the stairs that we rejected on Candlewood Lake Road. Can't remember the address.
Yeah, it's 28, I think.
28 Indian Trail.
That's it.
I have it up there. Mr.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you, Director Hodsa, please.
So 20A is currently in litigation, so we don't really need to discuss that. But,
Okay.
at the moment, so yeah, when you say you rejected it, what do you mean? Isn't that so, who rejected it?
I didn't say it.
Didn't we?
The stairs, are we talking about 28?
application is this?
Was the
That
stair,
wasn't in front, that was in front of ZBA, that wasn't in front of.
wasn't it in front of us?
No.
Oh, I thought it was.
That was the zoning board of appeals application, and that, it was denied. And
Sorry.
So, and that it is in litigation now, so.
where was that?
So it's called 28 Indian Trail, and it's over there.
Funny, I thought we-
There's an enormous staircase.
I must have been watching it.
So that, and then, yeah, but actually, that portion, the portion that is in the street is not in litigation, because that was not even addressed by anyone. The case in court is regarding, the staircase that's on the property, owner's property, 20A. Literally, on there, is within their property, within the setback, within the setbacks. But there's also a part of the staircase that's on town property
Mhm.
without town permission. So they're actually, it's a trespass, an issue of trespass. And that is being dealt with by the selectmen, because that's their purview. So it's not an issue for this commission.
Thank you,
So
Director
sorry.
Hodsa. Any other comments or questions, thoughts?
I'll make a comment. Is
Please.
this on the record?
Yes, at this time.
Yes, it's all-
Still on the record?
We can adjourn, that'll be the next item on the agenda if you'd like.
Yeah, we can have an ex parte.
Apart.
Okay, yeah, I'm good.
All right, thank you. This time the chair's prepared to go to item number 11, and that's adjournment. We'd like
See you,
to
O'Connor.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Mr. Kame has made the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Pratt has kindly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed by nay.